June 7th, 1954. A small bedroom in Wilmslow, Manchester, England. A housekeeper opens the door and finds him on the bed. Beside him, a half-eaten apple, report said, cyanide poisoning, suicide. The newspapers barely noticed. A short paragraph on page 5. And then, nothing. But here is what those newspapers didn't say. 14 million lives, 2 years. One man. That man, the one dying alone in that bedroom at 41 years old, had cracked the unbreakable Nazi code during World War II. His work shortened the war by at least 2 years. Historians estimate it saved 14 million lives. That same man had asked, just 4 years earlier, the one question that created everything you call artificial intelligence. The idea behind ChatGPT, behind SPUD, behind every AI model that is reshaping your world right now. His name was Alan Turing. And the country he saved, the country whose soldiers came home because of him, prosecuted him, chemically altered his body, stripped him of everything, and left him to die alone. It begins with a lonely boy who thought differently and changed the world because of it. Welcome to episode 1 of the History of AI series. Alan Matheson Turing was born on June 23, 1912, in Paddington, London. His father was a civil servant in India. His mother followed. So Alan and his brother were left behind, raised by family friends in England while their parents worked abroad. He was, from the very beginning, a child who felt alone. He was also extraordinary. By the age of 15, he was solving advanced calculus problems without ever having been taught calculus. His teachers didn't know what to do with him. One school report said he was brilliant but disorganized. Another said his handwriting was the worst I have ever seen. He didn't think the way other children thought. He saw patterns where others saw noise. He asked questions that made teachers uncomfortable. And he was deeply, profoundly different in a way that 1920s England had no language for. At 16, he met a boy named Christopher Morcom at school, his first real friend. His first love, though he couldn't name it that way in those times. Christopher died suddenly of tuberculosis in 1930. Alan was 17. He wrote to Christopher's mother, "I feel sure that I shall meet Morcom again somewhere and that there will be some work for us to do together." The grief never fully left him. He went to Cambridge, studied mathematics, graduated with distinction, and then, in 1936, at just 24 years old, he published a paper that nobody understood at the time. It was called On Computable Numbers. In it, he described a theoretical machine, now called the Turing machine, that could simulate any mathematical computation. This was the conceptual foundation of every computer ever built. The laptop you're watching this on, the phone in your pocket, the AI servers running SPUD. We already covered a video for SPUD. Link is on description. All of it traces back to that 1936 paper by a 24-year-old who just wanted to understand thinking. But the world wasn't ready to pay attention yet. It had a war to fight. To understand what Turing did, you need to understand what he was up against. The German military had a machine called Enigma. It looked like a typewriter. But every time you pressed a letter, it didn't just type that letter. It scrambled it through a series of rotating mechanical wheels called rotors. Each rotor changed the encryption. Then there was a plug board at the front that swapped pairs of letters. The result? One message could be encoded in 159 quintillion different ways. That's 159 followed by 18 zeros. Even if you had every code breaker in the world working every second of every day, by hand, it would take longer than the age of the universe to crack it. And the Germans changed the settings every single day at midnight. So even if you cracked today's code, tomorrow you start from zero again. The Allied forces were losing badly. German U-boats were sinking supply ships in the Atlantic. Thousands of tons of food, weapons, fuel sent to the ocean floor. Britain was starving. The war looked unwinnable. The British government did something desperate. They gathered the best mathematicians, crossword puzzle champions, chess grandmasters, and linguists they could find. They brought them to a country house north of London called Bletchley Park. And they told them, "Crack Enigma, or we lose this war." Alan Turing walked through the gates of Bletchley Park on September 4th, 1939. One day after Britain declared war on Germany. He was 27 years old. The people at Bletchley Park had been trying to crack Enigma for months. They were getting nowhere. The Germans were too clever. The machine was too complex. Then Turing had an insight that nobody else had seen. He realized, don't try to decode the entire message. Instead, look for patterns. The Germans had habits. Weather reports always started the same way. Military messages always ended with "Heil Hitler." These predictable phrases, Turing called them cribs, could be used as anchor points. And then he built a machine to exploit those patterns. Not a computer, not yet. An electromechanical device the size of a large wardrobe, standing 2 meters tall and weighing almost a ton. He called it the bomb. The bomb worked by running through possible Enigma settings at mechanical speed, eliminating impossible combinations, narrowing down the field until the correct setting for the day was found. The first bomb was installed in March 1940. By the end of the war, there were 211 bombing machines running around the clock. Hundreds of young women, called wrens, operated them in shifts in dark, hot, windowless rooms. They didn't know what they were doing or why. Everything was classified. They just turned dials and noted results. What those machines produced? Intelligence that changed the entire course of the war. Before D-Day, the Allied invasion of Normandy in 1944, Enigma decrypts gave the Allies exact details of German defensive positions. Eisenhower knew where the German guns were. He knew which beaches were weakest. D-Day succeeded in large part because of Alan Turing. Historians estimate that the code-breaking work at Bletchley Park, work that Turing led, shortened the war by 2 years and saved between 14 and 21 million lives. 14 million people came home to their families because of Alan Turing, and almost none of them ever knew his name, because everything was classified for decades. 1945. The war ends, the world celebrates, and Turing goes quiet. Not because he's resting, but because his mind has moved to the next question. While everyone else is thinking about rebuilding Europe, Alan Turing is thinking about something else entirely. Can machines think? In 1950, he published a paper in a philosophy journal called Mind. The paper was called Computing Machinery and Intelligence, and it opened with 5 words that would echo through history. In that paper, Turing described what he called the imitation game. Imagine a human judge sitting at a keyboard. On the other end, 2 conversation partners, 1 human, 1 machine. The judge asks questions. Both partners answer. If the judge cannot reliably tell which one is the machine, then the machine has passed the test. We call this the Turing test today, and it is the foundation of every AI benchmark ever created. When OpenAI says GPT 5.4 scored 75% on human performance benchmarks, they are measuring, in essence, how well it passes Turing's 1950 test. We already covered GPT 5.4. Link is on description. But at the time, nobody cared. The paper got polite academic attention, a few letters in philosophy journals, and then silence. The world wasn't ready for the question. Computers barely existed. The idea of a thinking machine seemed like science fiction. Turing predicted, "I believe that at the end of the century, machines will be able to think without contradiction." He was right. He was just 50 years early. 1950. Machines will think. Turing predicted 2000. It took until 2023. And then, 2 years after the most important paper in AI history, the British government destroyed the man who wrote it. He cracked the unbreakable code. He saved 14 million lives. He asked the question that created artificial intelligence. And then the country he saved came for him. Not with gratitude, not with medals, with handcuffs. What they did to Alan Turing next is something history tried very hard to forget. And what he did in response will stay with you long after this video ends. Part 2. This Wednesday. Shadow post. Subscribe. Because this story is not over. It's just getting to the part they never taught you in school.